The twin suns of Sylvani Prime rose slowly over the golden spires of the palace. It was the day of the Queen's announcement. Across the empire, nobles, warriors, and citizens waited with curiosity. Queen Zelari was the most powerful ruler in this part of the galaxy. Her decisions shaped the future of entire star systems. In the grand hall, the Queen stood tall on her platform. Her silver robe flowed like starlight, and her eyes, sharp as blades, looked over the silent crowd. Her daughters stood beside her, Princess Alira, the eldest and strongest, Princess Nalari, clever and proud, and Princess Saren, quiet and gentle. All three wore ceremonial armor, their expressions calm but curious. Everyone expected the Queen to announce powerful royal unions. Maybe Alira would marry a warlord from the Takari sector. Maybe Nalari would bond with a merchant prince. Maybe Saren would join with one of the crystal diplomats. The guesses were endless. Then the Queen spoke. "I have chosen a mate," she said. Her voice echoed with power. "Not for myself, but for my daughters. He will stand beside them, will share their strength. He will guide them in peace and war." The nobles leaned forward. "Who could it be?" "He is not from this empire," she said. "He is not from any noble house. He is not alien at all." The hall fell into silence. "He is human." Gasps filled. The air whispers flew like birds. Humans were known but mostly ignored. They were new to the stars, strange in behavior, and unpredictable in war. They didn't follow tradition, didn't fear old customs, didn't seek approval from older races. A name appeared on the large holoscreen above the Queen's throne. Ethan Rowe, an explorer. Once a soldier, now working as a scout in distant trade routes. "This man saved my life," Queen Zelari said. "Years ago, during the Shadow War, when our ship was attacked, he risked everything to pull me from the wreckage. He asked for nothing in return, and I have watched him since. His heart is steady, his mind is sharp, and his loyalty is true." Few nobles stepped back. Some looked pale. One general nearly dropped his weapon, but no one said a word. No one dared. The Queen's voice grew colder. "If anyone wishes to question this decision, they may step forward now." The hall remained still. Even the air felt heavy. After a moment, the Queen nodded. "Very well, send for him. Let the daughters meet their future." Miles away, deep in human-controlled space, Ethan Rowe was fixing a broken sensor on his small ship when a message arrived. He read it twice, then a third time. He blinked. "Wait, what?" A message was short. "By royal decree of Queen Zelari, you are summoned to Sylvani Prime. Transport arrives in 4 hours. Dress well." Ethan laughed at first. Then he stopped laughing when the transport ship actually arrived, sleek, black and marked with royal symbols. A tall guard stepped out and bowed. "Mr. Rowe," the guard said, "the Queen awaits." Ethan packed a small bag, took a deep breath, and stepped aboard. He had no idea what was coming. The journey to Sylvani Prime was fast. Alien technology cut travel time short, within hours. He was walking through the palace halls, eyes wide. Everything was tall, glowing, and alive with strange energy. I felt like a child in a dream. The Queen greeted him personally. She didn't smile, but her eyes held warmth. "You remember me?" she asked. "Hard to forget," Ethan said. "You were bleeding, your ship was on fire, and I thought we were both going to die." She nodded. "And yet you carried me too. Safety. When others ran, you stayed." Ethan shrugged. "You needed help. That's all." "That is rare," she said simply. "Come, meet my daughters." He followed her into a large chamber where the 3 princesses waited. Lil looked at him with bold eyes. She crossed her arms. "So, this is the human." Nalari tilted her head. "He doesn't look like much." Saren said nothing. She just stared at Ethan, smiled awkwardly. "Hi, pleasure to meet you." Lyra stepped forward. "You don't bow, should I?" Ethan asked. "Nah." "La," I rolled her eyes. "Unbelievable." Queen Zelari raised a hand. "He will learn, or he will teach." "Perhaps both." The princesses said nothing more. Ethan could feel their judgment like heat on his skin. He spent the night in a guest room with walls that hummed softly. He didn't sleep much. His thoughts spun in circles. Why him? Why now? Was this a test? A trap? Or something else? The next morning he woke to a challenge. Princess Alira had left a message. Meet me in the arena. Bring courage. Ethan sighed. Figures. But he showed up. No armor. Just a plain shirt and old boots. Alira was waiting, sword in hand, eyes sharp. I won't hurt you, she said, unless you deserve it. Ethan raised his hands. I don't even have a weapon. Then dodge, she said, and charged. The crowd watched from high balconies. It wasn't a fight, it was a storm. Alira moved fast. Her strikes were powerful, but Ethan didn't run, ducked and slid across the sand. Every time he avoided a blow, he smiled a little. After 10 minutes, Alira paused, panting. You don't fight? Why? Ethan wiped dust from his face. Because you're not my enemy. She stared at him for a moment. Then slowly, she lowered. Her sword, the crowd murmured. It wasn't victory, but it was something else, something new. The morning after the arena match, Ethan found a tray of food waiting outside his room. Warm fruit, crispy wafers, and a cup of sweet, glowing drink. He picked it up carefully and looked around. Oh, no one was there, but a note was. You faced my sister and did not break. Now face me, Nalarian. A small device blinked. He pressed it. A voice spoke, soft and sharp like ice. You will join me in the thought chamber. Do not be late. Ethan sighed. Great. No rest for thee. Guest. He ate quickly, dressed, and followed a palace servant to the thought chamber. It was a tall, circular room with floating lights and strange symbols spinning in the air. Princess Nalari stood in the center, wearing a long robe and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Hello again, human, she said. Hey, Ethan replied. I like your room. It's floating. It's built for challenges of the mind, she said. I don't need to test your muscles. I want to test your thoughts. I should have brought coffee, Ethan muttered. She pointed to a seat made of glass and light. Sit. Answer the questions. If you lie, I will know. Ethan sat down. The chair adjusted to his shape, humming softly. Nah. La, I began. What do you fear most? Ethan paused. Losing people I care about. The lights above flickered once truth. What do you want from this palace? I didn't come here wanting anything. Flickered truth. Do you believe you are equal to us? Ethan looked straight at her. No. But I also don't believe. I'm lesser. The room pulsed. Nalara's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. She continued asking strange questions, sharp questions. Questions that poked at his past, his mistakes, his hopes. He answered honestly, even when it made him look weak. He didn't hide his fear or pride, or the fact that he missed Earth food terribly at the end. Nalari stepped closer. Her voice softened. Most who stand in this room try to impress me. They lie, they bend, they act. I'm not good at acting, Ethan said with a small shrug. Clearly. Her lips almost smiled. As he stood to leave, she spoke again. You passed, human. That's good, right? For now? He left the room feeling like he had run a marathon inside his head. Later that day, he walked into the royal garden just to get some fresh air. The trees here glowed gently, and the flowers floated in the breeze. He sat on a bench near a small pond. Frogs with wings buzzed nearby. A quiet voice spoke behind him. You're not like I imagined. He turned. Princess Saren stood there. Hands folded, her silver eyes watching him. And how did you imagine me? He asked, loud, proud, always talking. Ethan laughed softly. I guess I forgot to follow the rules. She walked over and sat beside him. Silence fell between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Why did you really save the queen? She asked. Because someone had to, he said, and because it was the right thing to do. Saren looked at him closely. We had no power. No armor, yet you ran into fire. Courage isn't about power, Ethan said quietly. It's about choice. She didn't reply, but her eyes softened as the suns lowered. The queen called a private dinner in a chamber high above the palace. The daughters, Ethan, and a few close guards sat around a glowing crystal table. The food was colorful and strange, but tasted surprisingly good. Queen Zalari watched them closely. You each tested him. Tell me your thoughts. Lyra nodded. He does not fight to win. He fights to understand, Nalari said. His mind is honest. That is rare in this palace, Saren simply said. He listens. Ethan blinked. Thanks, I think. The queen looked at him. Still do not understand why I chose you. Not really, he said. I mean, I'm just a guy with a ship and a lucky past. You are more than that, she said. You are change. He frowned. Change? Our empire has grown strong, but rigid. Stuck in old ways. Fear rules more than hope. My daughters deserve more than tradition. They deserve someone who challenges them. Ethan looked at the three princesses. Each of them watched him differently now, not with doubt, but with curiosity. So what happens next? He asked. Now the queen said, standing, you train, you learn, you stay. Whether you choose one or none is up to you and them. Blinked. Wait, I get a choice. Yes, she said. That's what makes you different. After dinner, Ethan returned to his room. But before he could close the door, a message was waiting for him on his wall screen. I still think you're strange, but less annoying than I thought. Nalari, below that, another message blinked open. Meet me in the training field tomorrow. I want to see if you can dodge my sword again. Lyra, and one more, simpler than the rest. Bring more pond. Stories, Saren. Ethan leaned back, smiling just a little. For the first time since he arrived, the palace didn't feel so cold anymore. Dark clouds floated over the capital of Zilvani Prime. It's not from weather, but from rising tension. In the royal palace, smiles were thinner, whispers louder, and some doors closed tighter than before. While the queen and her daughter spent time with the human, not everyone was pleased. Lord Thalic, one of the empire's oldest nobles, watched the change with silent anger. He sat in his private chamber, staring at a holly mage of Ethan Rowe. A human, he muttered. This outsider dares walk beside royalty? We bleed for this empire, and he brings jokes and stories. A pale alien with dark markings stepped forward. We have options, my lord. Quiet ones. Quiet ones. Thalic turned to him. Prepare them. Let's remind the queen that tradition cannot be broken without cost. Meanwhile, Ethan stood in the royal training field, breathing hard. Alira circled him, wooden blade in hand. You move faster today, she said, swinging again. I had a big breakfast. Ethan joked, ducking the strike. He rolled and reached for the practice stick lying nearby. They clashed briefly, and for a moment Alira smiled. Watching from the edge, Nalari raised an eyebrow. He's clumsy, but clever. Saren sat beside her, quiet as always, her eyes fixed on Ethan. After the training ended, Ethan dropped onto the grass, laughing. I think I almost landed a hit. Alira smirked. You almost fell over your own feet. Close enough. The sisters looked at each other. It was the first time in weeks they had shared laughter together. Something about the human made the palace feel less heavy. But behind that lightness, shadows gathered. That night, a servant entered Ethan's room quietly. She carried a tray of fruit and a sealed note. Ethan sat up, frowning. I didn't order anything. The servant didn't answer. She placed the tray down and left without a word. Curious, Ethan opened the note. Double quotes. Leave. Now. Before you are removed. Another way. He stared at the words, then at the fruit. Something about it smelled off. A soft knock came. The door opened and Saren stepped in. I saw the servant, she whispered. She is not one of ours. Ethan showed her the note, cerned, took the fruit tray and scanned it with a small handheld device. The screen turned red. Her voice grew cold, poison, slow but deadly. So someone wants me gone, Ethan said calmly. Double quotes, yes, she whispered. And they nearly succeeded. The next day, Queen Zalari stood in the great hall, her eyes sharper than ever. Her voice cut through the air. A servant used false credentials to enter royal quarters. Poison was placed in food meant for my guest. This is treason. To her guards, find the one responsible. Now, no one dared to speak. But deep in a hidden chamber, Lord Thalic smiled. While the palace searched, Ethan joined Nalari in her private study. Shelves of glowing books lined the walls, and crystal screens floated in the air. Why bring me here? Ethan asked. I handed him a datapad. I traced the poison. The compound comes from a world controlled by House Thalic. You think he did it? He has reason, power, and hatred for outsiders. Ethan nodded. What now? We gather proof, Nalari said. Act. But quietly, if we act too soon, he will slip away. As they worked, Elira joined them, placing a map on the table. I heard from the guards. Thalic has been meeting with off-world mercenaries. Saren entered next, holding a small crystal. This was hidden in the garden wall. It records sound. I played it back. They listened to a voice rough and low. The human is a crack in the wall. Once he falls, the empire breaks. Move soon. Was THA Lek? Ethan stared at the crystal. I've seen betrayal in war, but this is planned. Nalari nodded. Yes, and now we plan back. They spent the next 2 days gathering more. Every movement of Thalic, every whispered deal, every secret meeting, the sisters worked together like never before, combining strength, logic, and instinct. Ethan watched them, and quietly, his respect for each of them grew. Ira, fierce but fair. Nalari, sharp but loyal. Saren, soft-spoken but brave. On the third night, they brought their findings to the Queen. Queen Zalari listened in silence. When the crystal finished playing, she stood. Prepare the hall, she said. Summon every noble. Thalic will answer in front of them all. The next day, the great hall was filled. Nobles in robes, guards in armor, servants holding their breath. The queen sat on her throne. Her daughter stood at her side. Ethan, though not a royal, was placed beside them. Lord Thalic entered, calm and proud. You called my queen? He said. I did, she said coldly. You stand accused of treason. You brought poison into my palace. You conspired against my guest. Gasps echoed through the room. Dacha Lek laughed. Accusations from a human's mouth? Nalari stepped forward. From this, she said, playing the crystal. Tha Lex, single quotes as face change. Eoi drew her blade. You threatened our home. Guards surrounded Tha Lek. Queen Zellery rose. You will face trial. And if guilty, punishment will be swift, Thalic said. Nothing more. After the hall emptied, Queen Zalari turned to Ethan. You see now, she said, why I needed you? Ethan nodded. It's not because I'm powerful, but because I don't belong. Yes, she said. And sometimes it's the outsider who sees the cracks before they break. Outside the palace, the skies of Zilvani Prime darkened again. But this time, it was not because of clouds or poison. It was because of ships, dozens of them, unmarked, silent, approaching fast. In the royal command room, alarms rang. Screens lit up with red warnings. Guards rushed through the halls, and commanders shouted orders. Queen Zellery stood tall, her voice calm but firm. Identify the fleet. A young officer replied quickly. They're not sending codes, no alliance. Symbols. They came from the outer rim near the shadow systems. Ethan stepped beside the queen. Mercenaries, or worse, she said. Ethan looked at the maps on the screen. The ships weren't heading for the cities. They were going straight for the palace. In the garden, the princesses stood ready. Lil Ira tightened her gauntlets. So Thalic had friends. Nalari held her tablet close. He planned more than we guessed. They waited for this moment. Saren spoke softly. Then we stopped them. Inside the palace, Queen Zalari turned to Ethan. I give you authority to lead our outer defenses. He blinked. Me. You understand how these mercenaries fight. You've been in their kind of war. Our generals will listen. I don't have a title. She looked at him firmly. You have my trust. That's enough. Ethan moved quickly, joining the soldiers outside the city walls. The Zilvani troops were strong but trained for formal battle, not fast and messy raids. Ethan reorganized them into smaller squads. He showed them how to ambush, how to retreat and strike again, how to read the land. Some officers questioned him at first. A human giving orders, one muttered. Ethan didn't argue, simply said, do you want to win or do you want to win? Argue? They followed. As the enemy ships landed, black armored troops poured out. They weren't just mercenaries. They were exiles, pirates, and warlords paid with promises of gold and power. They charged toward the palace, expecting easy victory. They didn't get it. Ethan's forces struck fast from the shadows. Traps exploded beneath enemy feet. Small teams hit from behind, then vanished. Rooftops became ambush points. Bridges collapsed as enemies crossed. It was a storm of confusion, and it worked. Meanwhile, Alira led the palace guard at the gates. Her sword moved like lightning. She took down invader after invader, never slowing. Nah. Lara stayed near the tower, using her tech skills to shut down enemy drones and scrambled their COMMs.CRI and guided civilians into hidden tunnels. Her calm voice keeping children and elders steady, even as the walls shook. Hours passed. Smoke rose over the city, but the palace still stood. The enemy was strong, but the heart of Zilvani was stronger. Inside the palace command room, Ethan checked the latest scans. They're regrouping, he said. We hurt them, but they'll come again. Stronger. The queen nodded. Then, we prepare again. That night, as fires burned on the horizon, Ethan stood alone on a high balcony. His uniform was torn. His arms were scratched. But his eyes stayed sharp. Sarin joined him quietly. You didn't leave the field, she said softly. Couldn't, Ethan replied. Not when people were counting on me? She looked up at him. You are not like the others. Said that before. Yes, she said. But this time, I mean it in a good way. The next day, a message arrived from the enemy commander. A giant screen activated in the sky over the palace. A tall alien in red armor appeared. His voice was deep and cold. Queen Zalari, surrender your throne. Give us the human, and your empire will survive. Everyone in the courtyard froze, but the queen did not move. She stood before the screen, her daughters beside her, Ethan at her side. She spoke clearly. We do not give away those who protect us. You want him? Then face all of us. The crowd cheered. Across the city, soldiers stood straighter. Citizens picked up tools to help. The queen's words had lit a fire. The next attack came faster, stronger. Heavy dropships rained down from the sky, but this time Zilvani was ready. Ethan led a trap in the forest outside the city. His team used mirrors, false signals, and smoke to pull part of the enemy into a dead end, then dropped the canyon bridge behind them. Lear stood at the palace gates again, but this time, with support from trained civilians, turned into a brave. Defense line Not Larak uploaded a virus into the enemy's weapons. Making their rifles fail during the charge, Sir stood with the medics, healing and calming the wounded, never once leaving her post. Finally, as the enemy numbers dropped, their leader landed himself walking alone toward the palace with fire. Behind him, Ethan stepped forward. You're brave, the alien commander said. For a human, you're bold. Ethan said, for a loser, they charged. The fight was fast and brutal. Blades clashed. Fists struck. Ethan took a hit to the shoulder, but landed one straight to the alien's mask. Cracking it, the commander roared and raised his sword, but a bright blue spear flew through the air and hit his chest. Elira stood behind Ethan, breathing hard. You looked like you needed help. Thanks, Ethan said, catching his breath. The enemy forces scattered without their leader. Those who remained surrendered. Zilner Ni Prime was safe. Later, as cleanup began, Queen Zelari stood before her. People, the one you doubted, the outsider, he stood and fought for us. He saved us not with power, but with courage, ideas, and heart. She looked at Ethan. He may not be born of our stars, but he belongs among them now. People bowed. Not out of fear, but out of respect. Days passed after the battle, and the palace slowly returned to calm. The smoke had cleared, the enemy ships were gone, and the people of Zilvani Prime worked hard to rebuild what was broken. But something deeper had also changed. Something that could not be repaired with tools or walls. They had seen a human lead them, fight beside them, bleed for them. Now they didn't whisper doubts anymore. Now they watched Ethan with new eyes. Inside the palace, Ethan walked through the halls. Servants bowed. Guards nodded. Even nobles, once cold and silent, gave small, respectful greetings. Ethan didn't wear armor today. Just a simple black tunic. His wounds were healing, but his heart still felt heavy. War never left without leaving scars inside, too. He entered the garden where Saren waited beside the glowing pond. Her bare feet touched the water, calm and soft. "You came," she said. "You asked?" Ethan replied. They sat beside each other again, just like before the attack. No swords, no noise, just silence. "People speak your name in the streets now," she said. "Some call you Stormheart, others call you the Strange Prince." Ethan chuckled. "I've been called worse." "You gave them hope," she whispered. "They haven't had that in a long time." He looked at her gently. "You give them peace." Saren didn't reply. She just leaned her shoulder gently against his for a moment. It was small, soft, but real. That evening, Queen Zelari called a private dinner again. This time the room felt different. There was warmth, there was laughter, and Ethan sat between Alira and Nalari like he had always belonged. Lyra raised her cup. "To the human who doesn't run from blades," Nalari added, "and doesn't collapse under questions." Even the queen smiled a little. "To the one who made us all." Pause. They shared a quiet toast. After dinner, the queen stood. "I must speak to the stars tonight. I will leave you for alone. Talk. Not as rulers, not as warriors, just as people." She left the room with grace. Ethan turned to the three daughters. "So, now what?" Alira leaned forward. "We trained you. You fought with us. You didn't complain when I almost knocked your teeth out." "True," Ethan said, rubbing his jaw at the memory. "Nah," Larai tapped her glass. "You stood beside us even when others wanted you gone." Saren's voice was soft. "And you stayed kind." Ethan looked between them. "I didn't come here to win titles or impress royalty. I just wanted to be useful and ... safe."
"You're both."
Alira said. "Nah," Larai nodded. "But now comes the harder part." "What's that?" Elira answered. "Choice." The next day, Queen Zelari sat with Ethan in the upper chamber, looking over the city. Lights twinkled below. Ships floated quietly across the sky. "You have brought great change," she said. "Not just through battle, but through heart. My daughters each walk differently now, because of you." "I didn't plan that," Ethan said honestly. "I know. That's what makes it real." The queen turned toward him. "You have no blood?" "Right, no noble title, but you have something else. My people now look to you with trust. My daughters look to you with more." Ethan's chest tightened. "I didn't ask for this." "No," she said, "but now you must answer it." Lyra found Ethan first in the training yard. She handed him a new sword, freshly crafted. "No challenge today," she said, "just ... a gift." "Why?" he asked. "Because you made me see strength isn't always in the blade," she replied. "It can also be in standing still." She stepped closer. "If you stood beside me ... not just in battle, but in life, I would not be ashamed." Later, Nalari invited him to her chamber. She showed him her newest design's defense drones, mixed with human ideas. "You gave me something no one else did," she said. "What's that?" Ethan asked. Doubt, she answered. And doubt forced me to grow. She looked him in the eye. If you stayed, worked with me, learned beside me, ... I would not be displeased. That night, in the garden, Saren waited again. She didn't speak for a while. Neither did Ethan, finally, she said. You never raised your voice. You never asked to be seen. Ethan nodded. I've been seen enough in my life. It's time I just wanted to see others. Saren smiled gently. Then look at me now. He did. If you stayed, she whispered, I would not feel alone. Days passed. Then a week. The Empire began to breathe again. Peace returned. But inside the palace, one choice remained. Queen Zalari gathered everyone once more. This time in a quiet chamber, with only her daughters and Ethan. I will not force a bond, she said. Not now, not ever. She looked at Ethan. But you must choose your path, alone or shared. Ethan looked at the three daughters. Each had changed him. Each had taught him something important. Each one mattered. But this choice wasn't about romance or rank. It was about where his heart felt. Still, he stepped forward. I don't know the future, he said. But I know this wherever I go next. I don't want to go alone. He looked at the queen. May I stay? She smiled gently. You were never a prisoner. Then she turned to her daughters. And you? Lyra placed her hand on Ethan's shoulder. He's mine in battle. Nalari placed hers on his arm. He's mine in mind. Saren placed hers over his. He's ours in heart. And in that room, the old ways ended, and something new began. The next sunrise on Zilvani Prime was calm and golden. The palace stood tall against the soft morning light. The Great War was over, the traitors were gone. And peace had returned, but this peace felt different, stronger, deeper. Not built by titles or old traditions, but by choices made with heart inside the palace. The grand hall was prepared for a new kind of ceremony. Banners of silver and deep blue hung from the walls. Flowers floated in crystal bowls, and music played softly through the air. Guests from across the galaxy filled the room, nobles, warriors, scholars, and even common citizens. They were all there for one reason, to witness something that had never happened before. Queen Zalari entered the hall first, wearing a long royal robe. Her presence was calm, but proud. The crowd bowed in silence as she walked to the front and stood beneath the glowing crown symbol of the Empire. Then came her daughter Zalira in warrior armor, trimmed with gold. Nalari in a flowing robe with lights blinking across the sleeves. And Saren in a soft white dress covered in tiny stars. The crowd watched them with awe, for each one had earned their place through action, not just blood. Last came Ethan. He wore a simple black outfit with a silver sash across his chest. His human face was calm, but his eyes were full of emotion. He had never stood in front of a crowd this large before, not as a soldier, not as a leader, and certainly not as someone being honored by a royal empire. But here he was. He stopped. Beside the three daughters, the room went silent. Queen Zalari raised her hand. Today, we mark a change not with force, but with unity. This human, who had no title, no noble name, has stood beside us, not to rise above others, but to walk beside them. You were chosen not for your strength, but for your heart, for your mind. And because you never asked for this. Ethan nodded slowly. I never thought I'd belong here. Still don't know if I do. The queen smiled. Yet here you are, and no one dares object. A quiet laugh spread through the hall. Even some of the nobles smiled. The queen continued. From this day forward, you are granted a new name, Ethan of the Bond. Not as prince, not as general, but as bridge. Between worlds, between minds, between hearts. She looked to her daughters. And you three? Do you accept this bond? Lyra spoke first, strong and proud. I do, in battle and in peace. Dalari followed, calm and sharp. I do, in thought and in trust. Saren, gentle and quiet, placed her hand over Ethan's. I do, in silence and in light. The hall erupted in soft applause, not loud or wild, but respectful and full of meaning. Ethan looked around, amazed. He had once been a simple explorer, flying old ships and fixing broken wires. Now, he stood among royalty, not because of luck, not because of fate, but because he had simply done the right thing. After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Palace gardens were filled with laughter, food, and stories. People came to greet Ethan, young soldiers who had trained under him, scholars curious about Earth, and even children who called him the calm warrior. Illyra pulled him aside near the training circle. "You still owe me a real match." Dodging this time, Ethan laughed. "Fine, but only if you promise not to break my arm." Nalari joined them, handing Ethan a small device. "I built this. A communication link to your old ship. You'll never be far from Earth now." "Thank you," he said. Surprised, Serin appeared, holding a tray with glowing fruit drinks. "For peace," she whispered, offering one to each. Of them, they stood together, drinking quietly, watching the stars appear in the sky. Later that night, Ethan found Queen Zalari alone on the balcony, watching the horizon. "You never told me your full reason," he said. "Reason for what?" she asked, choosing me. She turned to him, her eyes calm. "'Cause change never comes from those who follow the path. It comes from those who walk beside it. Or cut a new one." Ethan nodded. "But I was afraid." "So was I," she said. "But fear is not failure. Staying frozen is." They stood together in silence. Then the queen said, "I'm no longer just the mother of daughters. I am now the mother of change." Weeks later, Ethan stood on a cliff overlooking a field. Construction had begun on a new academy, a place to train leaders not just of strength, but of wisdom and heart. It was Queen Zalari's vision. But it was built with human ideas, alien knowledge, and royal support. Ethan would be its first guide. He looked at the blueprint in his hand. Behind him, Illyra's voice rang out. "You're not building a battle school?" "No," he said. "I'm building something better." Nalari walked beside him, a place for all minds. Serin placed a hand on his arm, and all hearts. From that day, the empire began to change. Slowly but surely. Some nobles still frowned. Some old voices still muttered. But they were. Few, most followed. Not because they were forced, but because, at last, they believed in something new. And it all began the day one alien queen chose a human, and no one dared object.